On today's show, Jonathan Kuminga has not yet debuted for the Hawks, but he is on the way, and I'm joined on today's pod for an opportunity to dive into Kuminga from someone who covered him in Golden State. We'll get into what to expect and more coming up.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 2168 of the Locked On Hawks podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, now the #1 sports podcast network. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Sunday evening here in mid-February. And today's podcast is sponsored by the folks at FanDuel Sportsbook. Use Profit Boost right now on NBA futures and get entered for a chance to win the trip to the NBA Finals this year. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. And it's All-Star Weekend. The Hawks have been involved, represented out in LA. J.O. Johnson, Zachary Richer. I'm recording this podcast a little bit actually during All-Star, the festivities on Sunday evening, but I will not be covering what's transpiring in deep fashion on that, as I said, before the actual break transpired. But I did record earlier this week with Sam Esfandiari of the Light Years podcast. Things really changed on the front. I wanted to note that I talked to him a couple days ago about Jonathan Kuminga, but Jonathan Kuminga is due, for the record, for a reevaluation from his knee injury when the All-Star break comes to a close. The Hawks will be practicing later on this week. As I always say on the pod, reevaluation does not mean return. He could be playing as soon as Thursday for the Hawks, but he might not be. We'll see how that goes in the future and learn more as the week goes on. But Sam was kind enough to join me to talk about Kuminga and what's been going on in Golden State, what kind of player he is, all that fun stuff. I want to remind you as well that I had a 2-part deep dive with Win Willis of ATL 29 that dropped a few days ago in the same podcast feed. And I'll have more as well before the Hawks return to action in Miami on Thursday. I also wanted to say this out loud. I talked to Sam for 36 minutes or so about Kuminga. This is not exactly a comprehensive scouting report. It's impossible to do that in a relatively short amount of time as far as like all the stuff he does and doesn't do, all of that. That would take a lot longer. And I talked about a lot of his strengths and weaknesses earlier once the trades were made. So keep that in mind. It's not exactly a full scouting report, but I wanted to get an expert who covered him in Golden State to talk about how weird it was, honestly, for the Warriors at sometimes, his pedigree, his skill set, what he brings, all that fun stuff. So here you go from the source. And without any more delay, we'll dive right in now to Kuminga with Sam Esfandiari of Light Years. Joining me now, a first-time guest of the show, someone I've been a big fan of for a long time. My first call on the Golden State Warriors. Anthony Slater, eat your heart out. Sam Esfandiari, what's going on, man? How are you?
Yeah, pretty good. All things considered, pretty good. Excited to be joining you. Sneakily an admirer of the team you guys are building right now, even though maybe the results aren't where you want them.
Yeah, it's a long-term plan, and as you would probably expect, fans don't like long-term plans unless they're like crystal clear long-term plans. It's different if you're like tearing down and all that. The Hawks are kind of in the middle spot right now where they're kind of in the waiting game. But hey, yeah, when Johnson's pretty good at basketball, they have a good pick this year, all those fun things. But number one, I should say you are half of, is this fair to say, half of Light Years?
That is correct.
Probably the more sensible. I love Andy. Andy's my guy, but I'll say just so you don't have to, the more sensible half of the Light Years podcast. But no, you've been covering the Warriors for a long time. How long have you been doing the pod and all this stuff?
Over
the Warriors?
Over a decade. The pod is on its 10-year anniversary season right now. This one's not going quite as well as the 2015-16 season went for the Warriors. But then again, most don't. So yeah, no, doing that. And then prior to that, I was doing some writing and blogging about the Warriors. So like 15-ish years. It's kind of crazy when I talk about it that way.
I had the same thought. I have been about the same exact time covering the Hawks and about the same exact time doing a podcast. I started this podcast in the summer of 2016. So after you guys, but right after. So almost a decade and all that fun stuff. But interesting player to discuss. So obviously I would have already this up before. Yeah. Lead with Buddy. No. Hey, if you have Buddy takes, we'll take them later on in the pod. A fascinating trade, I have to say. Like, people in the league that I talked to were like kind of not befuddled completely, but it was like, what's going on here on both sides? I think just all the background and Porzingis and the way that kind of never got off the ground in Atlanta. But I wanted to bring you on and talk about Kuminga because he's such an interesting player, and you and I exchanged DMs already. Kuminga has real fans, some very, very enthusiastic fans. he also has real detractors. And I kind of get why on all sides as someone who's watching from afar, but you're the insider here. This is year 5 for him as well. He's 23, he'll be 24 soon. I'll start broad. Now that you've seen 4.5 years of Jonathan Kuminga and now he's been traded, what's your general thought on the Kuminga experience at this point in 2026? And then we'll kind of drill down from there.
Yeah, part of me, I don't want to say feels bad for him, but I feel like he is more a symbol of managerial incompetence than anything to do with him. You draft a teenager who was notably raw, like of the top 10 picks, he was considered probably the rawest. Some people thought he had the highest upside in that draft of anyone, but everyone was in agreement he was a long-term project. No college basketball, minimal high school, 13 G League games. There was just going to be a long road to him getting self-actualized. You know, even someone like Jalen Johnson, who came in relatively raw, but I would argue way more NBA ready than Kuminga. It still took him like 3 years to really kind of show what he could be. So for the Warriors to draft him and be in a win now window with Steph Curry and Steve Kerr and Draymond Green and never really giving him the space to make mistakes and learn, like that's kind of why we've been arguing like they should have just traded the pick. Like this is a very unrealistic scenario you've set up. Steve Kerr is not going to let him play through mistakes because he has Steph Curry on the floor. And when Steph's on the floor, they generally have a chance to beat anyone. But how is he going to learn if he doesn't play through mistakes? So that's the first thing I think of. However, that does not mean he is blameless in this entire thing either. And, you know, there's been multiple episodes of immaturity. I could speak to all those later on. It felt like a divorce that needed to happen for both sides 2 seasons ago. And so for it to drag out this long, I think even though the return is, I don't even call the return underwhelming, it's just bizarre, I guess would be the best way to put it. It felt like everyone could finally breathe, just like enough. I think the most telling thing was he would be the first question that Steve Kerr gets on the podium, and Steve Kerr would just get more and more irritable as the season went on. He's like, he's not even playing. Do you guys want to ask me about the guys who are playing? Like he said that after one of the pregame scrums, just for an example. And then when they traded him and they won the game that night against Phoenix with essentially G Leaguers, you know, Pat Spencer, Guy Santos, like all these guys, he was like, it felt like a championship. And I was just like, you're trolling everyone at this point. But it was like, that is legitimately how a lot of people felt around the team and in the locker room, to just have this distraction gone. And it had, you know, he was well liked by his teammates, by the way.
Yeah.
Like he's not a dislike guy, but it's just like everyone knew the situation was heading towards divorce, and we're just waiting for it to happen at a certain point so you could just breathe and not have to think about it.
Yeah, and you know, it's different on the Hawks side, and you know, Porzingis is only here for a year, but there's a little bit of that, you know, this is just not working, and it's not anybody's like definite fault on their own. KP's was because of injury and illness. It's just a hard thing to talk about. But you know, it's hard on the team when they don't know when you're gonna play. And I think the Warriors, we'll see how that goes in Golden State. As we're recording this, he hasn't played yet. He will at some point anyway. But there's so much going on with Kuminga. Nothing you said surprises me. And I've been, you know, watching him from afar, and the whole. I'm sure I could do a 2-hour pod with you about the 2 timelines. I won't make you do that right now. But I thought about that when you were talking about, yeah. And obviously the, you know, Wiseman and all the things. But I think you're right. To be fair to Kuminga, and like you said, I from what I can glean too, not blameless in the situation. I will talk about his game in a second, but worth acknowledging, like a weird situation for him too. I think as good as Steve Kerr is, obviously, you know, automatic Hall of Famer whenever he's done doing whatever he's going to do. Not the coach that I would choose for Jonathan Kuminga, generally speaking. Obviously, you can speak to that more than I could, but it seems to me on the outside, like, especially with the way that they have played with Steph, maybe Kerr's not married to that, but the way that they have played with Steph and Draymond and Kerr, it's like, now that I've seen Kuminga, even as a draft prospect, when that happened, if people, not everybody was like this, but some people were like, hey, does that really make sense? Like, he's a different kind of player, but as far as his strengths and weaknesses are concerned, just a bad fit overall for that system, it seems like.
Yeah, I mean, they tried to argue he was going to add a new element to the team that they sorely needed. And to be honest, they still need it. They need someone who can get to the rim. They need someone with a plus athletic profile, since they have zero of those players in the rotation right now. Everyone's looking for 6'7" wings who profile as two-way players. Like the Warriors, more than anyone, made that like the most popular archetype for playoff basketball. So there was a lot of reasons that they would be interested in him as a prospect, but I always felt like, and this was particularly true after like year one, they were doing a lot of like wish casting. Like they saw the player that they thought he could become, but there was very little consideration for how realistic that was or any of the human elements to it.
If you wanted to experience the NBA Finals live and in person, FanDuel's giving you that chance right now to turn that dream into a reality with their NBA sweepstakes. And here's how it works. Use your profit boost on any NBA future at FanDuel, and you'll be automatically entered for a shot to win an NBA Finals trip for two. That's right, with flights, tickets, the entire experience. If you're already looking at the board right now, thinking about which team can actually make the playoffs, make a deep run, it's perfect time right now to lock into that with FanDuel. Futures are great this time of year. Picking a team to win the fight championship, grab the conference titles, etc., adds an extra layer of excitement to every single game down the stretch. And now, not only can you pick your cash for you, also it can send you this pick that you're making, can send you to actually to the NBA Finals. Plus, there's a full slate of offerings at FanDuel across the board from the sports betting space, like basketball, of course, but also baseball, hockey, golf, tennis, football stuff still available right now, soccer, auto racing, boxing, MMA, and so much more. And they have all kinds of angles for you at FanDuel, point spreads, over-unders, money lines, player props, game props. They have live betting, parlays, etc. It's all there for you at FanDuel. And the place to go is FanDuel.com to get started and use your profit boost right now on an NBA future and get entered for a chance to win a trip to the NBA Finals this year. Play your game with FanDuel, the official sports betting partner of the NBA. So I want to ask you about some on-court stuff. You know, his third season in 23-24, he had his best year, it seems like, by far. 74 games, was a part of the rotation all year, started like, 2/3 of the time, 16 points a game, all of that stuff, was efficient as well. And it was the only year that I could find where the Warriors were better with him on the court than off, and the off splits, for example. Going back to that, like, what happened after that? Like, what explains that? Not that he was like the best player of all time in his third season, but like going from that, like firmly entrenched, like this is one of our guys, to a year and a half later, and honestly, even before a year and a half later, he wasn't getting DMPs. Like, is it as simple as oil and water with Kerr and Kuminga system, all that stuff? What happened? Like, how can I explain that to Hawks fans that are like, hey, what the heck happened here with this guy?
So his most successful stretch with the Warriors was year 3. And I want to say it was from January until March. And he got an injury sometime in mid-March, and they weren't making the playoffs at that point anyway. So he just basically got shut down the last, 10 games of the season, something to that effect, right? He was being used as a power forward with Draymond at the 5 and Steph obviously at the point guard. So kind of 5-out spacing where he was essentially occupying like the same role that Giannis or like Pascal Siakam occupy, like a point forward creator. He'd get to use his athleticism, take advantage of Steph's gravity, and he feasted off of that. And that's where he was at his most successful, when he was able to, when they put proper spacing around him. He's very hard, if not impossible, to stay in front of one-on-one in an open court scenario. And if he gets a one-on-one matchup, like, he is strong, he is athletic, and he can't finish. And some of the questions about decision-making and ball handling ability kind of go by the wayside because he's not being asked to do too much of that in tight spaces. So that's where he has the most success. The reason everything fell apart was Jimmy Butler. They get Jimmy Butler. You know who else occupies those same spots on the floor? Jimmy Butler. And he's better at it. He's just a better player, right?
Right.
And so from that point forward, Kuminga never had a clear role with Jimmy on the roster, and they tried to get him to buy into being, I mean, the analogy Steve Kerr to use is like Sean Marion, Aaron Gordon, like, those are not shooters. And that has always been Kuminga's central issue. His lack of a reliable jump shot makes it hard to fit him in a ton of lineups. Like, you kind of have to go with spacing around him and use him as that kind of athletic rim runner or, athletic driver to the rim. And they didn't have a roster that allowed him to do that post Jimmy Butler trade. And no matter what they tried to get him to kind of buy into kind of being that defense first cutter, you're probably going to score 15 to 20 points just by virtue of the way the Warriors move the ball and your athleticism. It didn't take with him. He didn't play particularly well. And then there was the element of he didn't want that role. He views himself as a future star. He kept saying he wanted more opportunities. He'd say he didn't care about shots, but you could see in his play, if he got to touch the ball and felt involved in the offense, he got more effort on the other end of the floor. And that didn't stick with Steve Kerr, because from Kerr's perspective, he's like, well, you got a first ballot Hall of Famer over there. You got another one over there. And you want us to change everything for you. You should be trying to figure out how to fit in. Like, a lot of the reason guys like Brandon Pajemski and even like Moses Moody and like obviously like the G League turned regular contract guys like Guy Santos have found minutes is because they understand that. They understand their role is not to be the star. So they're willing to do whatever is asked of them to get on the court, and they play just 150% effort all the time, which will get you some places. At some point you run into a team like the Hawks are like, they're just bigger and more athletic at every position, and that's tough for us. That stuck out to me when the Warriors played the Hawks. I want to say it was a month back. But yeah, that's kind of the issue. And then, it would be disingenuous to not say the years of him not having a role and there being kind of this push-pull led to hard feelings on both sides. It's not just Jonathan. Like, Kerr was over it too. If you gave him truth serum off record, I'm sure he would say like, we should have traded him 2 years ago. But that's that's kind of the Cliff Notes, or like the high level synopsis of it.
Yeah, and it makes sense. I mean, you can go, and I did kind of go down the rabbit hole of like, when could they have moved him? When should they have moved him? They didn't ever do it. All those things. Even this summer, like, he's restricted free agent. There's a standoff. I get why you signed him to the contract rather than letting him go. All those things, but in the end, it kind of just lasted too long. And to be fair to him, and I think you are, it is a long time, and maybe he's a classic change of scenery guy. Like, if you're a Hawks fan, I've already been seeing that, and I totally get why you would say that, because like, hey, change of scenery, get him out of there, fresh start, still young, still talented. All of that is true. I also, my alarm bells go off because in Atlanta, like, the fit is not the cleanest fit in the world. Like, I think if you're choosing a team for him to go to, that's not the one you choose for fit purposes. They do have spacing, and then they have shooting centers. That definitely helps. But they have this guy, Jalen Johnson, that's not exactly like Jimmy Butler, but there's some crossover there too, where like Jalen Johnson's just better than Jonathan Kuminga at like all those things.
Correct.
So it's interesting to me, especially because I almost said it earlier when you mentioned it, but Auntie Soleil, former Warriors executive, Auntie Soleil, and Hawks GM, immediately talked up what you said. Like, I asked him about this in his first post deadline press avail, and it was the rim pressure, it was the foul drawing, it was the athleticism, it was the fact that they have, like, he has skill sets that they don't have other than Jalen Johnson. And you just said the same thing basically about his time in Golden State, where like, he is that guy that they didn't have. So it's like, I don't know what to make of it. You know what I mean? I'm not performing that either. I still don't know. It's been a few days now. I'm not entirely sure what I expect. And also, because he's hurt right now, he hasn't talked yet either. And part of this is that maybe the light comes on for him to say, hey, I just got traded for like almost nothing. Maybe I have to change my mindset and perhaps a change of scenery. Like, it's hard to psychoanalyze the guy, but like, until he's here and like buys in or does it, it's kind of hard to analyze. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. And that's the same feeling I had with this trade. Like, Atlanta was not on the radar of teams that we thought were a Kuminga team. Like, all you heard about was the Sacramento Kings. The Kings wanted him. They were the most like publicly verbal about it. You heard about it from countless reporters over the last year. And the other teams that were interested in him followed similar veins, in a little more of a rebuild than Atlanta's in right now. And teams that lacked kind of athletic, bigger wings that didn't have that role covered. So that is my first question, because all the places he's been most effective on the floor are the places Jalen Johnson operates. And so we're back to a scenario where he's going to have to play off of that guy. Now, maybe he can, maybe change the scenery, different coach, different system. Maybe that makes it easier for him. But it is a question. Like when I look at the Hawks right now, I see like 5 wings who have very clear pathways to minutes and roles. And I don't know where he fits into it. Like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, who's, by the way, a guy I wanted the Warriors to pursue, but anyway, that's a different story.
He's very good.
He's very good. He fits in any lineup because of his shooting and how he plays defense, right? Like total asset that way. Dyson Daniels, not the greatest shooter, but he is first team all defense caliber on that end. So, and he can pass the ball. He can do certain things. So, he gets on the floor for obvious reasons. And so I'm wondering, what does it look like if you put Kuminga next to Dyson Daniels and Jalen Johnson at the same time? You're athletic as hell. If you get in a game that's transition based, you're going to be a nightmare to deal with. But what does that look like in the half court? Does it look like how it looked like at the Warriors when they put him next to Jimmy Butler and Draymond Green? And if they weren't getting out into transition, possessions would consistently end with like a grenade shot, like the ball ends in Kuminga in the corner or Jimmy in the corner, which isn't that much better. And, the defense going to live with it. And like, if they have a night where they go 3 for 5 from 3, that's great. That's not going to change the defensive scheme because, there's no world where Kuminga's taking 15 threes and hitting 10 of them. Whereas, like someone like Nickeil Alexander-Walker, like if you don't guard him, he will get 10 to 15 threes up. And if you're not guarding him, he might make 60% of them and you might be screwed,
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think the low-hanging fruit on the Hawks side, and I think honestly, Soleil actually did a radio interview this week and was asked about Zachary Richeche in comparison to Kuminga. And he said that they play different positions, which I thought was interesting. He did not expound on that, but I was like, I think he might be viewing Kuminga as like more of a power forward. And I think that maybe the easy low-hanging fruit would be if Jalen Johnson's off the court, Kuminga is in the Jalen Johnson role. That makes perfect sense to me, but that's 12 minutes a game, 14 minutes a game, and they have to play together at some point. And to your point earlier, like I said the same thing that the day of the trade, I was like, he doesn't really fit with Jalen or Dyson. And Jalen and Dyson are arguably their 2 best players right now, certainly 2 of their top 3 players right now. So it's like that's kind of an interesting thing. And then you get the contract, which we don't talk about a ton, but like the optionality of that is Auntie's favorite word. But like that's half the reason why the Hawks brought him in. I'm not trying to pour the water on anybody else, but like if he doesn't have this very favorable contract with all these options, the Hawks don't make this trade. If he's not a huge deal right now, the Hawks don't make this trade. They just don't.
And that's why the Warriors had that like incredibly long and kind of annoying stalemate all summer because they were dead set on getting him on the most favorable tradable contract as possible
right. to trade him basically.
But yeah, to your point, like for Atlanta, if he signed a 3-year, 25 a year deal, there's no way the Hawks get him because if it doesn't work, now you're just talking about 20 plus mil of dead money for 2 years and frustrations and all the drama that comes with it. With this deal, it felt like a shrewd asset play to me for Atlanta. Like your worst case is you let him walk. Guess what you were going to do with Porzingis? You're going to let him walk anyway.
I had somebody that would know things present it to me this way. Basically, it's if you want to be cynical to some degree, it's the Hawks preferring Kuminga's team option and all of the options off that, like which they could decline or sign him to something else or trade him or all those things. They prefer that to the bird rights of Porzingis.
Correct.
It's almost basically just that's the trade in itself. And I mean, that's not sexy to a fan. I get that, but that's kind of what they did here in some respects. This year, tax season does not actually have to take over your life. And this time around, TurboTax making it easier than ever. Just head things off and move on with your day. With TurboTax full service, you can actually have your taxes done for you by a trusted local expert from start to finish. Yeah, start to finish. Without the stress or any of the guesswork. Instead of spending hours of your time trying to figure out forms, you actually meet with a local tax expert at TurboTax in person or connect online if you prefer. They handle everything from W-2s, self-employed forms, all the little things, all the big things, etc., and work to get you every single deduction. They actually upload your documents for you, go about your day, and get updates right in the TurboTax app. It's a huge time saver. It gives you real peace of mind knowing an expert is handling it all for you. For a limited time, you have your taxes done by a local TurboTax expert for just $150. That's $150, $150, all in if the expert from TurboTax did not file for you last year. Just file by February 28th. Take taxes off your plate and get back to your life. Visit TurboTax.com/local. That's TurboTax.com/local. Book your appointment today. Workplace chaos, deadlines stacking up, inbox overflowing, and the one position that you actually have to fill is still sitting open. When the pressure is on and you need the right hire, this is the job for sponsored jobs. Indeed, sponsored jobs can help you reach the people that actually have fit for what you're looking for from skills, experience, location. It's not just hoping the right person stumbles across your post. Here's something that says it all. In the minute that I've been talking to you right now, companies like yours made 27 hires on Indeed, according to Indeed data worldwide. So if you're hiring, don't waste time searching stuff, and instead actually use your time actually interviewing candidates. Check all the boxes with Indeed sponsored jobs that bring less stress, less time, and more results. When you need the right person to cut through the chaos, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. And also, listeners to this podcast will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get the job that you actually have premium status that deserves at Indeed.com/podcast. Just go to Indeed.com/podcast right now and support our show by saying that you heard about Indeed on this podcast. One more time, the place to go is Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply. If you need to hire, this is the job for Indeed sponsored jobs. I don't know. I don't know if it's going to work. I have some basketball things to ask you about that you already mentioned a little bit. One of them is the shooting, right? Kuminga's shooting is not great on the perimeter. He's not a non-shooter, but career 33% on like 700 attempts. Not a disaster, but not a plus. I'll let you talk about it, but like it seemed like you were skeptical of it to some degree. Is there any way that that's not going to be not a total liability, but like it's always a question mark? Is there any way it kind of progresses out of that? Do you see anything with this or heard anything behind the scenes? Like, do they believe in the shooting? Like, what happens there? Because if he's a limited shooter, it does kind of limit your options in some lineups.
I would imagine Steve Kerr, one of the greatest shooters of all time, was a bigger skeptic of his jump shot than most.
Yeah, I had that thought.
It's a high bar to say you're a shooter when you're talking to Steve Kerr and Steph Curry. You know, they have a higher bar than you and me in terms of what a real shooter looks like. I will say the bigger issue with Jonathan is probably decision making than shooting. He can hit, catch, and shoot threes. He does not take enough of them. And if you watch him shoot, he takes them slow. So it's always kind of a bailout shot, last thing of the possession. That isn't to say he can't hit them. I mean, in the Wolves series, I think he hit 41% of his threes. And in the games, which really caught people's eyes, it was exactly what I said. Like, they couldn't generate a shot, and he just hit a bunch of threes. So he can do it. But where he really gets into trouble, start digging into the mid-range numbers, start digging into the off-the-dribble shooting numbers. Bottom 5 in the league. I want to say he was at 30% on mid-range jumpers and short mid-range jumpers this year. And it's the shots that he takes when he cannot get all the way to the rim that are really what kind of irked Steve Kerr. You know, everyone likes to think of the Warriors as free flowing and they play with so much freedom. Steph plays with a lot of freedom. Everyone else needs to know where 30 is at all times, and they need to take good shots or they're going to get pulled. And, you know, there is a segment of not just fans, but like people in the front office and just people around the team who are like, that rigidness worked when you had, you know, Klay Thompson, Andre Iguodala, Sean Livingston, you know, kind of a bunch of guys who you would say are like elite level basketball IQ, and they have the ability to process the game and think that way. And for a younger player like Jonathan, who's still figuring out who he is, like he's getting too much in his own head. He's making worse decisions, and then you're compounding it by kind of getting too on him about it. So that's the other aspect to it. But I would say the decision-making was definitely the biggest issue, more so than the shooting. Because if you've watched the Warriors over the years, Steve Kerr has been very happy to play multiple non-shooters together. I mean, they played Draymond and Looney together for years.
A lot. Yeah.
Sean Livingston and Andre Iguodala, phenomenal players, but I wouldn't define shooting as the number one attribute for him.
Agreed.
But his whole thing was, if you play the right way, play smart, and make quick decisions, we can overcome it. It's obviously better when everyone gets guarded from the three-point line, but you can work around it if you have good decision-making. And he was just always a half second slow on that stuff. And I mean, I can think of so many instances where like they stack 3-4 good possessions in a row, and he's making an impact, and it's like, oh, look at this, Jonathan's turned a corner. And then 2 straight possessions, he hijacks the offense into some Kobe fadeaway from the mid-range, and he's not Kobe, and then, timeout, bench. Like, I've seen that song and dance so many times with the Warriors and with him. So I'm curious, because Quinn Snyder is an excellent coach and but he's a different coach than Steve Kerr. And so I'm curious if, running a different system, getting him the ball in different spots, and maybe not being as punitive on mistakes, or like picking your spots a little better, builds the trust and gets him to buy in more, gets him to a better place. All I know is that was not happening with the Warriors, with all like the, what's the expression, like built-in scar tissue of previous dust ups they've had.
Yeah, there's some, it's interesting. There's some overlap between Snyder and Kerr, I think, that is maybe not the best for this particular situation. But
I will say that overlap is true of basically every high-level coach. They're all stubborn. They all have their non-negotiables.
Absolutely. And I think that maybe a fresh start again, coming in with, I know that he makes a lot of money, but coming in with a lot lower expectations in Atlanta than he had when he got to Golden State, that matters. They don't necessarily, quote unquote, need him in the way that maybe he would want to be needed, but like it's a flyer for the Hawks. It's what it is. They're taking a flyer on him. And I think hopefully everyone understands that, including him. You never know that for sure until he gets here and buys in, but that's a question. I was going to ask you, I think you kind of get into some of that with the shot selection and the decision making, because like his 2-point efficiency is like way down the last 2 years. Is it just that he's taken bad shots? Is it just like those mid-range floater range shots? Because like he was really efficient for a couple years inside the arc, when he was just better overall in year 2 and year 3, and then since then it's like, how is a guy this athletic shooting 50% on twos? It's just like, what's going on here?
It's a combo of that and a combo of the lineups he was in. When he had success in that 2024 season, so year 3, like I said, they played Draymond at the 5.
Spacing.
They had 5 out spacing, and he got to play off of Steph, who was going to create the best advantages for him possible. From that point forward, I mean, they tried him a lot as a traditional small forward. And all right, you have Draymond at power forward, you have Kuminga at small forward, and then Looney at the 5. Or, this year, it's Quentin Post who shoots the ball, but, he's not Porzingis. Like, he's not getting the shooter's gravity that like true space 5s or whatever get. That's what leads to him driving into traffic, not having the lane to the rim, and taking those shots. So that's the issue. I want to call out one other thing here. He did have an awesome start to this season.
I was going to ask you about that, because like he was starting again. He was in the mix and all these things, and it's kind of just what happened.
So the first 6 or so games, they played him as a traditional small forward. He was shooting the ball really well from 3. I think he might have been 50% from the field from 3 those first 5 or 6 games. Like, yeah, I know, small sample. Oh yeah, here it is. He was 9 for 20 over 6 games. So 45% from 3. But he was bought into doing those Aaron Gordon, Sean Marion type of things where it's like, it doesn't matter what percentage they shoot. Like, we know they're not shooters, that type of thing. But he was cutting, he was rebounding, he was trying his best on defense. And what happened after that is they went into a losing skid, and that coincided with him trying to do more. So it's always the same thing. Those first 6 games, he had 17 turnovers, so like 2.8 a game. The next 6, before he got benched, the turnovers doubled, basically. That's the best way to think about it for him. He went from, he just kept trying to handle the ball more, get into the lane. The 3-point shot cooled off. And you get back to the same thing, which is, if he was willing to just be comfortable being a role-playing wing who is going to defend, rebound, and will live with the shot as it comes and goes, it's fine. But it's when he started wanting to freelance and, explore what he can do and see if he could score 20. That's what led to the efficiency plummeting, the results getting worse. And then Steve Kerr benched him. Then they were in kind of a free fall, and he's like, it's time for a lineup change. He moved both him and Pods to the bench in favor of veterans. Really tried to frame it not as a punishment for Jonathan, just like, hey, we've lost the last 5 games. We got to try something different. And I think from that point forward, they lost him for good.
That was it. Yeah.
Yeah. And so from that point on, it was like, I know he played some games, but then he came back, he got DMP'd. And then from that point forward, it was just kind of like, all right, dude, just don't make noise because you're getting moved February, no matter what.
Yeah, I was going to say, we'll trade you in a couple months. I'm going to get you out of here, but I do want to ask about the defense a little bit because the physical tools are not in question. He's he's obviously a really good athletic physical player. I've heard mixed reviews on his, attentiveness. Like, how is he as an on-ball defense? Like, what's the overall thought on? We understand the role concerns because, like, you got to buy in. That's a lot of defense when you have the tools, like he does. That definitely matters. But is he capable of buying in? Like, what's it look like when it's good, and what's the downside case for his defense? Because that's gonna look. I know that Quinn Snyder gets knocked a lot. I think reasonably so for leading into offense more than defense. But for Kuminga's future, he's gonna have to defend at a higher level than he has at the times in the past. So I want to know what you think about like the capability of that.
Yeah, I mean, he's had his best success on ball. He does foul too much. Like, if you stick him on the other team's best player, he has the physical attributes to hang with them. But like many young guys, he, too much reaching, fouling jump shooters, that sort of thing. What's really got him in trouble and benched is just attentiveness to the game plan off ball. He's one of those players who can float defensively. And again, it comes back to, you can blame Steve Kerr for this as much as you want, but from his perspective, he's like, you're not a star. You don't get to take a possession off the way Steph Curry does. Your job is to play hard every possession. And so there's a different threshold for when he zones out and those sort of things on that end. I don't think it's unfixable, though. He does have the tools. It seems like, I guess, you're right. Like, the overarching point here was it just got to a negative place between the two of them. And I felt like they both were just at the end doing stuff in defiance of the other one, which is not a great thing.
That's
either.
not good. I mean, on one hand, you don't love that, but I think on the Hawks side, again, I don't want to overweight this, but you're hoping the light comes on. And I don't know how else I can frame it. It's like, he's got to buy in. I'm not comparing them as players. I used to say this about Cam Reddish all the time back in the day. Cam Reddish Kuminga has done way more than Cam Reddish ever did in the NBA. Full stop. But similar pedigree, high pedigree guys, lottery picks, and Reddish was convinced he was a star, and he just wasn't, and the light never came on for him. Or if it did, it came on too late, and it was just too late. Kuminga is, again, better than Reddish for sure, but I feel like it's kind of the same issue to some degree. It's like, hey, you probably have to buy in, or maybe his destiny is end up on the Kings in a year and average 20 a game on a bad team. I don't know which one of those is going to happen, but maybe that's too simplistic.
I mean, when the trade went down, my first thought was like, Porzingis, really? That's where this all ends. You couldn't just attach a pick to him and get something a little less damaged.
I can totally see, by the way, I don't know the Warriors front office now. I could totally see them being like squinting a little bit, but like, look, if KP can play for us, he's really good when he plays. He never plays, but he's really good when he plays. So I can see them being like, we'll fix him. Rick Scalabrine, come on down.
I mean, that is what they're doing. They're like, Celebrini, can you please get him healthy? Because you are right. The healthy version of Porzingis, which I don't think we've seen in multiple years now, is tailor-made to play in the Warriors offense. You can see exactly how him and Steph Curry works, and
for sure.
It opens up the court for other guys on the team, and all that sort of stuff. Like, it's a flyer. I view it as it's both high risk and low risk. I call it low risk because they made sure not to attach a single asset to him. You know what I mean?
No, you attach Buddy, and Buddy's a negative asset, I think, at this point.
Yeah, but at least he's off the books in the summer.
Yeah, it's a small guarantee, and he's played 5 minutes with the Hawks. It didn't look great, and I think we didn't talk about him on this podcast for a reason. I don't. Buddy's had a great career. He's really one of like the 20 best shooters of all time. I think it's probably over for Buddy pretty soon. So that's okay.
Yeah, I will say Buddy was very well liked in the locker room with the Warriors, so that did kind of suck.
Everyone likes him. I mean, even here, like on record, off, everybody's like Buddy. Everyone likes Buddy. He's a fun guy. Everybody likes him. So I'm not knocking him. There's a reason. Look, he can still shoot the ball. I know he didn't shoot the ball well this year, but I have no doubt he can shoot. That's kind of all he does now, but that's okay.
Yeah, no, he was FaceTiming Jimmy Butler yesterday, and they posted it on Instagram. So there's still some like camaraderie there and that sort of stuff. Yeah, I don't know. The cynic in me thinks that your cynical take is the correct one, that they think that it's a better asset, and if he shows a little something the second half of this season without the baggage that everyone knew he had in Golden State. Everyone knew how like the Warriors front office had no leverage. They could lie.
It was not well. Look, I'm on the outside. it was not well hidden. The entire league understood the situation was toxic there. I mean, that's overstating a little bit, but like, you know what I mean?
Correct.
There wasn't
if nothing else, everyone knew the coach hated him. So they're like, this is a perfect opportunity for us to lowball him. You don't have leverage. You're not playing him. So I don't care how much
and they're trying so hard to trade him too. Like everyone kind of knew they pretty much had to this time around. And yeah, I don't mean to be, it's not only about the asset play, but I know Monte Soleil, he's a process guy. I'm confident that's part of this. And look, he also was around him a little bit in Golden State, and I think that's probably some of this. If he thought he was going to come in and sulk and blow things up, the Hawks wouldn't do this trade. So there's some sort of belief that Kuminga can show something. It's not a totally cynical venture. I just know that if the situation is kind of what it is on both sides. I mean, the Warriors take the low cost flyer, and they kind of just swap low cost flyers. It's kind of what I look at it as.
I'm just 100% convinced if Quinn Snyder plays him 20 minutes a game off the bench, he's going to pop enough games that you're going to be in better position to get more for him in the summer than you would have got holding on to KP's bird rights, just given the situation.
I agree. That's kind of why in the end, I know this will not surprise you. A lot of people thought I was too negative about the trade when it happened, because I wasn't just like throwing pom-poms for Kuminga. I think he's a talented player, and I said that multiple times. But I agree with you. It's really that I like the transaction because of that. I think he can show a little bit, and his value on the trade market will be higher in 4 months than it is 40 years ago or whatever it was.
And it's a smart play for the Hawks because they're acquiring another guy who's ascending. Like you said, he's 23. He'll be 24 next season. You can still see the upside. Whereas Porzingis, he's 30. He's gonna be 31, and the injury list is far worse than his age. If he was just 30, it wouldn't be that big a deal.
No, he's not that old, but hey, by Warrior standards, he's kind of young.
I know he made the team younger. It's great.
It's an old team. Sam, I'm gonna let you get out of here. I appreciate you giving me all the time. Maybe Hawks fans will want to follow KP. I can tell you, not a whole lot of KP stands around the Hawks after the way he just didn't play basketball. I defended it to some degree, like, hey, the guy has an illness. What are you going to do? But anyway, if people want to follow you and especially Andy, because Andy is entertaining all the time, where can they do that?
Yeah, check out the Light Years pod. We go live, I want to say 3 times a week in season, usually after Warriors games. You can follow us on any platform you get pods, Apple, Spotify, YouTube, doesn't matter. We'll be there. Enjoy the conversation. And yeah, Brad, appreciate you having me.
It was my pleasure. Hopefully Hawks fans have a better grasp on Kuminga that I could give them. I've been watching a lot of synergy clips on Kuminga the last few days. I got more to watch before he starts playing again. Hopefully back pretty soon. But anyway, thanks again for doing this, Sam. Everybody else, please subscribe to Locked On Hawks. Check out Light Years, and we'll see you all next time.